Good morning. Good morning. It's great to have you here this morning. Great to hear the buzz of excited and happy voices. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Greater Naples. Welcome to those of you who are here in the sanctuary. Welcome to those of you who are with us online this morning. Welcome to everybody out on the pavilion this morning, if you can hear me. Good, they're waving. Excellent. Sound is good. Check, check. I'm grateful to be here. My name is Tony Fisher. I serve this congregation as its minister. I'm grateful for the folks who are here in support of this service, including you. But that would mean Daniel Goodsit and John Forsyth in the AV room, Abby and Sean here to create beautiful music, and our worship associate today, Catherine Costello.
I'm as worship associate with actual live people back here in the sanctuary, so it feels wonderful. We have a mission statement for our congregation that was developed more than 7 years ago, which says, "We are a welcoming congregation, freely seeking intellectual and spiritual growth. We strive to create a community of peace, justice, and love. If you have found us for the first time, please let us know. We would love to send you one of our full of wonderful thing newsletters. We are an active congregation, and we have much to share. We hope that you will take time to email our administrator so that we can include you in our information. And now, let's settle ourselves in to worship with this morning's prelude."
May our ears hear what nobody wants to hear. May our eyes see what everyone wants to hide. May our mouth speak our true faces and hearts. May our arms be branches that give shade and joy. Let us be a drizzle, a sudden storm. Let us get wet in the rain. Let us be the key, the hand, the kick, the ball, the road. Let us arrive as children to this huge playground, the universe. And let's join together in singing inside your masks, if you will. Our opening hymn will sing two verses of We Laugh, We Cry. Oh, wait. We'll do a chalice lighting first. So join me in the chalice lighting response. May this flame stir our hearts and remind us of our mission, to be truly welcome, to grow in mind and spirit, and to widen the circle of peace, justice, and love. And now, let us sing together, and you're invited to sing within your masks this morning. Our opening hymn, number 354, We Laugh, We Cry. We'll be singing two verses. The words will be on your screen.
Questions of this life, we seek to put an end to all the waste of human strife. We search for truth, equality, and blessed peace of mind. And then we come together here to make sense of what we find, and we believe in life and in the strength of love, and we have found a joy being together, and in our search for peace may we finally see, even to question truly is an answer.
Where are we? We live on a land that was formed over time, the result of plate tectonics, of sea level rise and fall, of a land of change. Ancient peoples, maybe 12,000 years ago, arrived in this area. Ancient people whose culture was of hunting and gathering, fishing. And that culture evolved slowly, and about 500 years BC, in our local area, evolved into something called the Calusa culture. The Calusa indigenous people lived here at that point. And they occupied this land and built canals and were very much a ocean or water-oriented people. But with the advent of the arrival of colonial Europeans, first the Spanish and then the English further north, the Calusa began to fade away. victims, as many other indigenous tribes were, of violence and disease brought on by the colonial settlers. That was in about 1700. And about 1800, the Seminole and the Miccosukee arrived, fleeing that settler colonialism, finding areas of Florida that had not been habited before since the Calusa. But they were followed by the white settlers, who then bring with them hard laborers, forced labor, African Americans, and then Mexicans, and then Haitians. This land has evolved over long periods of time. Our presence here, our recognition of who has come before, especially those native peoples who have occupied this land far longer, is important for us to recognize, to be aware of, to celebrate. We can't celebrate their disappearance. We celebrate their existence, honoring it. Conflict throughout that time, just like the rise and fall of the sea, has existed in between people, in between tribes, cultures across the land. It's present and ever present as a natural result of engaging with other people. Conflict is completely natural. And today, we're going to be talking about conflict. And next week, we're going to be talking about engaging difference, a 2-week sort of work on how we can grow into wholeness, not just within ourselves, settling back into our own private places, our places of comfort, but in engaging the world. We mark our days and months and weeks in a series of recognitions, lifting our awareness. Today, for example, is World Mental Health Day. I don't know if you knew that or not. October 10th is World Mental Health Day. An international day for global mental health education, awareness, and advocacy against social stigma. And without minimizing the importance of that, I can only say that I think we all could use a little mental health. Wholeness is what we seek when we're talking about mental health, an ability to integrate both ourselves and with our society. And I think one of the things we think about when we think about wholeness is this incorporation of community, and that's why it's important for us to be here together, to experience one another gratefully in this space. This is also Hispanic Heritage Month, and Catherine is going to talk about that a little bit from her own new perspective.
We're most of the way through Hispanic Heritage Month, which will end this coming Friday on October 15th. It began on September 15th. What? A month that spans 2 months? After all, Black History Month is February and Women's History Month is March. So how did Hispanic Heritage Month become divided between 2 months? Well, unfortunately, that's one of the reasons that it's often overlooked. And of course, the reasons for its placement they're complicated. First, though, let's clear up the issue of why Hispanic Heritage Month spans 2 months. The timing of the start date for the observance is linked to National Independence Days in 5 Central American countries: Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, Nicaragua, and Costa Rica. The 5 of them won their independence from Spain after almost 300 years of colonial rule on September 15th, 1821, thus the start date. Similarly, Mexico won its independence from Spain on September 16th, earlier in 1810. That makes sense. But dividing the observance between 2 months isn't an optimal marketing strategy. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but public attention is better gained through simplicity. Given that a huge majority of Americans are hard-pressed to even name the countries of Central America, and hey, how many Americans really understand that Mexico is part of North America? Are there other reasons why Hispanic Heritage Month is often overlooked? Let's take a look at the word Hispanic. It actually means speaker of Spanish. But the people of Spain are called Spaniards, not Hispanics. Another misunderstanding. Although the term Hispanic has gained widespread recognition, it overlooks the non-Spanish-speaking people south of us. I've come to understand why the term Latino is preferable to many over Hispanic, because although Spanish predominates, it isn't the only language spoken by Hispanics. But the term Latino also has its complications. Latino means a native of Latin America. Well, then, don't we have to explain what Latin America means? Under one definition, Latin America consists of people whose language originated from Latin, the so-called Romance languages. As a geographical definition, Latin America is defined as those countries formerly within the Spanish, French, and Portuguese empires. However, many people use Central America and Latin America interchangeably. Complicated. So, Latinos, plural, Latino, singular, masculine, Latina, singular, feminine. That sounds logical, right? Because the Romance languages are gendered languages, and nouns are always designated as masculine or feminine. But what about the relatively new term Latinx, which aims for non-gender identity? So far, research shows that in 2020, only about a third of Hispanics are even aware of the term. But some corporations, especially, have decided to get on board so as not to seem insensitive. And just this week, I got a mailing from the Maryland chapter of ACLU on which they had identified this month as Latinx Heritage Month rather than Hispanic Heritage Month. We'll all have to figure out the languaging for ourselves. But as a white Caucasian, I'll take my lead from those who own the terms, the Hispanics and Latinos who enrich my life. And don't forget that tomorrow, October 11th, is the designated day for Columbus Day. And don't forget that tomorrow, October 11th, is also designated as Indigenous Peoples Day. And both of those designations are completely clear and uncomplicated, right?
With the centering hymn this morning, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place, it's number 1008 in the Teal hymnal. The words again will be on your screen. We'll sing 2 verses.
When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell the story from deep inside, and we listen with a roving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. Then our heart is in a holy place.
For some of us, this week has been interesting. Some of us, It's been troublesome. For some of it's been joyful. For some of us, we've been going through something we would rather not be going through. Every week, every day, we experience our ups and our downs. And this time that is usually shared between us on this floor, I hope that you will speak out a name. Could be yourself, quietly. It could be the name of somebody you're holding close, thinking about, worried about. Someone you know is feeling wonderful with a sense of joy and triumph this morning. So let's share names this morning in the sanctuary, and for you online and out on the pavilion, I hope you'll do the same. In this space, use your voice, use your lungs, vibrate your chest, speak a name so that we all may feel it. Thank you. And we all know that there are many names, many people whose joys, whose sorrows have remained unspoken. And so we light this candle of community, recognizing our place with each other in this world of joy and sorrow. Please join me in the spirit of meditation. By the grace of that which flows through all of us, which is larger hearted than we can ever imagine, we are constantly given the opportunity to begin again. As the signposts along the continuous journey suggest twists and turns we had not brought into view, for our focus was on the mountain just up ahead beyond the ridge. By the faith of our interconnection that lives through the trust of our human ability, we are constantly offered the challenge to test the waters, not just smooth the inevitable ripples to a satiny gloss finish as if that were the goal of life. Losing all character, not realizing the swells are what make life interesting, intriguing, and indescribable. In the love for that which is greater than each and all, whose very core is compassion. For our earthly missteps on this journey, we are constantly given an opening to remember that we have a place in the kingdom of humanity, and the knowledge and courage to begin again toward a faith-filled, loving grace that is our birthright. Let's spend some time in silence together.
Our theme today, Leaning into Conflict, led me to one of the hot button issues in the United States today, immigration. The irony that we are, and we know we are, a nation of immigrants, but that many Americans don't want any more immigrants to come, fuels the prejudice of last ones here. This is a stretch, but I experienced a form of this when I moved to Naples 5 years ago, and by my second winter season was already complaining about too many snowbirds and looking with suspicion upon new building projects that might clog my roads. I never intended to move to Florida. Maybe it's the smallness of my native Maryland that makes me leap to criticisms of big old Florida. And sure, most of my criticisms are based on Florida politics. But Florida has been good to me. In addition to all the gorgeous weather, vegetation, and wildlife, if it weren't for living here, I would probably have lived the rest of my life with white, Caucasian, Eurocentric blinders on. So, my Florida life. 2016 was one of the best years of my life. I fell in love and moved to Naples. I found UUCGN in 2017, and as a result of that, found the Guadalupe Center. First, I volunteered as a mentor to a high school student, and by 2018 had expanded my connection by offering voluntary Saturday workshops to groups of students who are members of the Guadalupe Center Tutor Corps. For the most recent 3 school years, including this one, I've been a paid consultant to the Guadalupe Center. When I first drove to Immokalee, which I'd been told is like driving to another country, I was loaded with a raging, ego-driven sense of purpose. After all, I thought, I have many years of experience teaching college-bound affluent students, and certainly the students of poor Immokalee needed me. I was a little apologetic that I don't speak Spanish, but I was almost oblivious to how ignorant I was about the community of diverse people I'd connected with. Immigration wasn't a big concern for me living in Maryland, but because of our proximity to Washington, D.C., we're used to diversity. Border conflicts, however, were not a part of my world. Before coming to Florida, if I were given a test to identify the countries that make up Central America and South America, I would have failed. My geographic focus was always on Europe. When I was drawn to Immokalee, I arrived with plenty of teaching experience and chutzpah, but little ethnic awareness or appreciation. The first year, I felt self-conscious and awkward, trying to figure out how to make conversation. I recently read a blog written by an Hispanic man who made the observation that every time white liberals meet him, they immediately have to tell him about some wonderful trip they took to an Hispanic country. While when he meets white conservatives, they look at him carefully, trying to figure out if he is illegal. I didn't know that although Mexicans are the largest group in Immokalee, there are others, especially Haitians, with whom I would work and become emotionally attached. I came to Immokalee still using the term illegals instead of undocumented, and in the beginning, I wasn't even sure if I would feel safe there. I wasn't completely immune to the ugly concerns about immigrants, that they cost taxpayers too much, and that some of them are undesirable. I didn't agree with those charges, but I was too self-absorbed to pay enough attention to our nearest neighbors to understand their history, their contributions, their worth. Thankfully, I have been changed by Immokalee, and it has opened my eyes to some of the complexities of immigrant life. When I went to Immokalee, I experienced what we all need to experience that lessens the fears and prejudices we harbor. Direct and frequent social contact with people who aren't the same as we are. Conflict is born from unfamiliarity. I have much more to learn, but at least now I have the humility to realize that Florida, and Immokalee in particular, has given me more than I have offered. A whole part of the world I largely ignored for 70 years has opened up, and I am moving slowly but with determination toward empathy and understanding. In this conflicted world, what better chance do we have to abate the conflict than by leaning into one another rather than shutting ourselves off?
Let us stay together for a time. Let us stay together for a while. When the evening is approaching and the day is almost spent, let us stay with one another for a time. All we have in common is a road. All we have in common is a journey. We are simply fellow travelers who are passing in the night. Let us stay with one another on the road for a time. Dare we trust a stranger with our dreams? Dare we trust a stranger with our story? If we cannot hide our tears, let us share our hopes and fears as we stay with one another with our dreams. All we have in common is a road. All we have in common is a journey. We are simply fellow travelers who are passing in the night. Let us stay with one another on the road for a time.
I was 13 years old and quite sure that if more days passed before I got to Disney World, Disneyland, because Disney World didn't exist at that time, that I would be missing life altogether. Unfortunately, Disneyland was on the other coast of the United States from where I grew up. And so I schemed, I plotted, I figured out how much money I had in my little piggy bank. And I went to my parents and said, when vacation comes, I would like to take a bus from Boston to Anaheim, California, because that's what I could afford, and go to Disneyland by myself. Well, that wasn't going to happen. So my parents arranged with my mom's sister, Betty, and her husband, Gene, that on the next vacation, I would fly to California and meet up with them in San Francisco, and we would all drive down the coast from San Francisco to LA. My aunt and uncle, my two cousins, Andy and Ben, and myself. This was my first real exposure to conflict. My aunt and my uncle were just totally different than my parents. In my house, conflict was avoided at all costs. In this family, it was constant, up and down, back and forth. It was the norm. They would bicker with each other all the time as we were driving down Route 5. And aside from that, my two younger cousins were at each other across my body in the back seat all the time. And they were always reaching back, you know, Andy, Ben, stop. I thought this family was going to disintegrate in a matter of that trip. But of course it didn't. My Aunt Betty and Uncle Gene were married for over 53 years before he passed away. Such a different experience than my own home, where I could go into detail about how our family avoided conflict. I can actually, when I think about it, and I think about my experience at the dinner table where I've talked about before, I can even see and imagine how the body language of each of the members of my family, my sisters, my mom and dad, my grandparents, I could see the body language when sort of the disagreement level started to rise just a little bit. And when it did, which was rare, when there was an argument, let's say, at the dinner table, which I was never involved because I never spoke, but they would automatically turn up the broadcast volume and turn down the receiving volume so that there was a one-way conversation going two ways across the table. But as I said, this is rare. And before too long, because there's an unspoken rule in our family that conflict was to be avoided, someone would say, well, doesn't the table need to be cleared, or what's for dessert, or whatever. We did not engage conflict in my family and still are uncomfortable with it to this day. But despite my family's attitude about it, conflict is a very natural and inevitable part of life. Each one of us sees things very differently, even the very same thing. If you remember that story about the wise men and the elephant, and each blinded with a blindfold, and they each were feeling around and finding a particular part of the elephant and describing it carefully, and each one coming up with a different idea of what this thing was. Each one of us sees things through our own lenses. We carry lenses to which we view the world that come from our experience, from our upbringing, from our education. Each of us have a part of the truth of a situation. And because of that, we perceive conflict from our own point of view and from our own set of needs. Our picture may be different than anyone else's, but together, as with those wise people, we can construct a whole picture of what's going on if we lean in to a situation, if we lean into a point of conflict. Now let me ask you, you don't have to speak it out loud, but how would you think you deal with conflict? What is your conflict style? Are you an avoider? Sometimes I am. Anne will, tell you, quite frankly. Are you a harmonizer? Do you try to just, make things work? Are you a problem solver? Do you dig right in and here's how we're going to figure this out? Are you directing the traffic? Are you making sure that you're sort of in control of things? Or are you compromising? Are you someone who tries to make everybody happy? There's only 5 styles, but I'm sure there are more. And whatever level, you could be across the board, a little of each. But we each have our own style about conflict and ways to deal with it. And if we understand that and understand the ways other people deal, we have a better time trying to figure out how to work our way through, how to lean in. We have this idea that conflict is always painful, but in reality, it is natural. And if we think of it as opportunity instead of pain, that will go a long way towards sort of dissolving some of the divides that we have between us, both in small settings and large. We want to be understood, of course. We want to be understood, and we're crying out to be heard, but so is everybody else. But if we start projecting our own, home movies on everybody else, then we'll never get anywhere. If we're stuck between the covers of our own autobiography, which includes all our experiences, good and bad, the things we're proud of and the things we're not, our justifications, we never get anywhere. So what would it take to really understand what's going on inside someone else with whom we're sort of involved in conflict? How would we go about that? How would we sort of decenter ourselves, as Catherine was talking about, and sort of center the whole? The English word for conflict comes from the Latin confligere, to strike together, which causes energy. Like a match, strike a match, it releases energy in the form of oxygen meeting phosphorus sulfide. Strike a match, conflict, fire. And fire is a great metaphor for conflict. When we think about fire naturally, in the natural world, fire destroys, of course, but also it's very important for regeneration. Forest fires are a natural occurrence in the world. We go out and fight them, but in actuality, forest fires help burn away some of the undergrowth, so some of the larger trees some of the stronger trees can grow up in spaces where their light is exposed. So, like that, conflict has its positive and negative features. Conflict can absolutely be something that's destructive, both to our own sense of self, if somebody is hurtful, but it can also be an option, an opportunity for growth within and together with other people. So conflict itself arises when two people or groups believe that they have incompatible goals, however they perceive that. Incompatibility in this case meaning one person or group sees the other's goal as an obstacle for achieving what they want, what they think they need. Their perception that somebody else's goal is interfering with their own. And a conflict has 3 component parts. This sense of incompatibility, our attitudes, and our behaviors. Incompatibility is the starting point, which a conflict becomes manifest in, and each of those 3 elements begin to interact. The second element, attitudes, and those states of mind that accompany and arise from this fear, this concern that our needs are not going to be met. And then the third component is behavior, how we actually turn those attitudes into action. Sometimes if we don't take time to think, all those things happen at once, and our attitudes and our behaviors can become hurtful both to ourselves and to other people. If we take that breath, if we take that moment to consider what's going on, What do I really feel? To dig down deep. What are the needs that I'm really asking for? What are the needs that I feel need to be met that maybe that other person doesn't really understand? Because I'm talking about this, but I'm really feeling that. So the idea that idea that we have needs, but that we might express them in ways that don't necessarily express the need. We need to ask ourselves, what is it we're really feeling when we get upset, when we feel that we're in conflict with somebody? What is it that we're really feeling? And in conflict resolution, and conflict transformation, an understanding, a self-awareness is very important. We can't dive into something without thinking about what's going on, without going on inside of us. And that part of that story is a narrative that involves those questions, the who questions, the what, when, where, why, how. If we continually ask ourselves those questions and begin to understand more deeply our own perspective and have an ability to articulate that through narrative, giving the other person, of course, the opportunity to do the same, we can begin to understand that perhaps our needs are not in conflict, but that what we're talking about, our rhetoric, is what's driving us apart. That's not to say that everybody's needs are the same. We all have basic human needs of food, shelter, clothing. But beyond that, we generate and grow needs from our own experience in life. But we also need to be aware of what those are. What are our needs in this world? Within this community, for example, we have people who really need to have a stable environment to come to be part of, a comfortable social place where we can engage with people who are like-minded. And then on the other side of the sanctuary, or maybe even right next to you, there's somebody who's feeling like, gosh, this is a great place of social action where we can be and do and go out and express ourselves in the world. And while those two views may seem incompatible, in fact, when we start talking about who we are and why we're here, we begin to see that there's some commonality and some ability to live within that same community together and support one another in our individual goals. The power of story in conflict is so incredibly important. When we think about the divides in this country and the ability of some people to express things in story form that other people see and sort of take in as their own story. We think about the political divides, two different narratives of the United States, reaching back into history and looking forward into the future. And those are built around narratives that engage people's minds and hearts. Rhetoric is so important, and in our own way, as we view the world, as we view the conflict and the divides in our country, we need to look carefully at the words, not only that are being used in support of one position, but also the words that are being used in support of our own, and understand how they're influencing us so that we can, once again, find our own place, find our own center, and begin to move from there. When we think about those who, what, where, why, how questions, whose interests are at stake in this? What issues are involved? Why are people feeling the way they do? How are they going about this? Where is the power? What's the context of this whole thing? Are we alone in this, or is there a larger context? And when? What space and time? Which allows us then to look forward and take our cues for action. Who needs to be involved? Who's in a position to help us build bridges, to serve as a peace builder? Who am I in this conflict? Where do I fit? Am I causing harm, or am I creating a possibility for growth and change? What can be done to address the issues? Why? Why am I involved? When is the best time for this peace building to occur? Do we need some time to take a break? Do we need to dive into it? All these questions involve building a narrative together, slowly, carefully. This happens on an individual level, an interpersonal level, and on a larger level. Henry Nelson Wyman, a Unitarian theologian, talked about this interchange, this constant interchange of energy, creative energy, hopefully, with others, where we share our stories and our understandings and our myths. And together, as we continue to communicate these things, we begin to grow some new narratives around the collective as opposed to our own, holding on tightly to our own autobiographies, as I said earlier. Wyman called this the creative event, where we were building something greater than the sum of our parts, more than each of us individually. This takes a real ability and a real sense of need to act on our part and not to avoid, which again is a place where I come from, but stepping forward and engaging difference and finding ourselves in places of discomfort so that we can learn and grow is critical. Engaging, working, listening, reflecting, sharing, building on what comes out of that experience, widening the circle. For Wyman, in his own language, this was actually the experience of God. He wasn't into anthropomorphic God. He was into this idea that the sum that is greater than the parts, that energy that is created when we really start engaging one another, was that thing that is greater. And in his words, God. Regardless how you call it, we need to begin to engage in this creative event in this country, in this way of engaging to get out of our own autobiographies and into a collective story that we can build together. Our principles call us to this. We're called to recognize the inherent worth and dignity of every person. We're called to think through how we act with one another and think about justice and equality in the way that we do things. We need to think about the larger picture and not just ourselves, our interdependence. So in the course of our Unitarian Universalist ideals, this idea of the creative event, of creating something greater than ourselves, of engaging, of leaning into conflict is there. It's an important part of who we are and who we could be. As we face a troubled world, we too, of course, are troubled and puzzled, and we recognize that our own dreams, our own hopes are being threatened. We can, in fact, begin to step away and build greater divides. There are divides, there are differences. Some of them seem vast, but we are called to move into those spaces. When our courage fails, when our spirits droop, when our faith, in fact, trembles and we lean towards skepticism, then we come to our center to remember who we are and where we came from and what values we carry, who we are sitting next to, what communities we're involved with, to give us the strength to move forward in understanding and hope. The Unitarian Universalist minister Robbie Walsh talked about this time of unsettledness and fear, combination of fear and hope, where we're trying to get our bearings. He wrote, "When the great plates slip and the earth shivers, and the flaw is seen to lie in what you trusted most, look not to more solidity, to weighty slab of concrete poured, or strength of cantilevered beam to save the fractured order. Trust more the tensile strands of love that bend and stretch to hold you in the web of life that's often torn, but always healing. There's your strength. The shifting plates, the rest of earth, your room, your precious life, they all proceed from love. the ground on which we walk together. So may it be.
As we take time to consider these words in today's messages, let's also take time to show our gratitude for this community and all that it does. Yesterday, I got my reminder in the mail that we are halfway through our fiscal year here at UUCGN. And whenever I write one of my pledge checks, I really appreciate that that money is going to be well distributed. As my husband loves to say, he likes the Unitarian Church because it's not about me, it's about you. And I know that this sanctuary and all of its equipment and upkeep has to be tended to so that we're comfortable. But I also know that when I send my pledge checks, that money is going for valuable endeavors, many of which were spoken to today. So please, put the summer behind you, get that checkbook out, and send a contribution so that we can continue this wonderful work.
That was great. Thank you so much. It's really wonderful working with these two in that they respond so much to the theme and the idea. We had Hispanic Heritage Month, and we had sort of the conversation of the prelude and the tango, which is how we all work our way through life, I think, in terms of give and take, and sometimes it looks violent, and sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't, but we stay together, right? Awesome. Thank you so much. So, a few moments to give you some updates on what's going on. As you know here, our sanctuary is open. We are inviting people in who have been vaccinated, who are wearing masks and keeping relative distance from one another as their own comfort indicates. As always, you're welcome to watch from the pavilion if that's where you're comfortable, and to be online. We're so grateful that you're here, whether you're watching in person now or sometime later. So we're grateful for that. And you'll be hearing some news about sort of beginning food service as we move further along in the weeks ahead. Wonderful Wednesdays returns this week, Wednesday, October 13th. We're going to have a wonderful celebratory kickoff. I'll be sort of emceeing, I hope, a very fun evening. It's going to be hybrid. Those of you who want to be here can. Please let us know, because we're having a boxed meal for anybody who wants to join us in person. And so check out the Sunday News today for all the important details there. You've been hearing about requests to help out with our religious exploration program. I don't want you to think that you can't volunteer to teach. Please, you'd love to have you teach, but there are so many ways that you can be involved in that on a very one-time basis. You could bring a snack for a Sunday, and we don't have that many kids, so it's not that big a deal. Jump in early right now when we don't have that many kids. 10 kids what we have right now, so look for the details, or ask Stephanie St. John, our new religious ed coordinator, how that would work. You can come and help greet on a Sunday morning. Meet the kids as they walk in the door, learn their names. That would be so special if everyone did that once a year, just to be there, to be present, to show our religious education community that you care, that you're interested, that you're hopeful. So many things that you can do. Ask me, ask Stephanie, ask the board, who heard about this yesterday, and who all volunteered yesterday for something to help out with RE. So I hope that you too will jump in there. In terms of our sort of intergenerational activities, save the date, October 29th, the Friday before Halloween, we'll have our annual Fall Fest and pumpkin carving. If those of you who are sort of your inner child can come out through the carving of a pumpkin would join us, that would be superb. We'd love to have you there. Chalice Circles are small group gatherings, start up in November. Chalice Circle is a form of small group ministry, groups of 6 to 8 people meeting regularly, in our case twice a month, to reflect and share deeply and listen without judgment about concerns of heart and mind. It's a well-structured and well-formatted program. I urge you to do it. It's really powerful to be able to go deeply within yourself and with a few other people on a regular basis. Sign-ups start today, just outside the front door. Elle McPherson and Joan Leary, and I don't know, Ann, will you be there too? We'll be there. And so please sign up for that. And the choir met this past Wednesday. There was Thursday, sorry. There were, I think, 6 intrepid souls who met with Sean and Abby, but we're looking for a lot more, and of course people will come back. But if you have not joined the choir lately but have a voice that you would like to use, talk to these two right after the service. And now you can sing. Closing hymn, number 311, Let It Be a Dance. We'll sing every verse.
Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. music, say the words, and fill the sky with sailing birds. Let it be a dance, let it be a dance, let it be a dance. Learn to follow, learn to lead. Feel the rhythm, feel the need. To reap the harvest, plant the seed. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you, through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Everybody turn and spin. Let your body learn to bend, and like a willow with the wind. Let it be a dance, let it be a dance, let it be a dance. A child is born, the old must die. A time for joy, a time to cry. Take it as it passes by. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you, through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Morning star comes out at night. Without the dark there is no light. If nothing's wrong, then nothing's right. Let it be a dance, let it be a dance, let it be a dance. Let the sunshine, let it rain. Share the laughter, bear the pain. And round we go again. Let it be a dance.
Do not fear agitation, for agitation is the rhythm of life itself, to be put in motion, to be stirred. Do not fear the movements that decenter what you always thought permanent. You carry within the center of your understanding the compass to show you the way. You carry with you the love that will hold you, the vision that will guide you, the relationships to all beings, and the world that will ground you. Go in peace and in gentle agitation to stir this world to the side of love. Have a great day. Thank you.